anytime if you need me to. Okay.
Yeah,
And I'm taking notes during this
that's fine.
session. I can share them with you at any time. Okay, so today, Quentin, uh, we can dive into any type of relationship problems or conflicts that you've ever experienced or come in contact with. Could you
Sure.
describe for me your experience?
Sure. So one relationship issue was my junior year of high school when I broke up with my girlfriend because we had communication issues, and she was uh, like to do other things like hanging out with her friends a lot and journalism and things like that, and I was more into sports, and there were just a lot of times when we didn't communicate properly to each other, and I think that's what contributed to the breakup.
Okay, so you said communication contributed to the breakup. Would you say the communication difficulties came from a lack of time for each other? Because you described
Yeah,
having different hobbies, hanging with friends, journalism.
yeah. So um, not communicating about uh, time for sure when we were planning to do things uh, with our friends and things like that, and not being able to make time for each other to do things. So I think that's what communication and um, just not really being clear. And I think if we had talked about or planned things more, then it probably wouldn't have turned out the way it did.
Okay, so I hear you. You say a lot of the problems came from communication. I understand because in one of my past experiences, communication was like something that I really had trouble with because when there's lack of communication, you kind of lose that connection to the other person. Um, but how do you think that relates back to you? What do you think could have been done differently in order to communicate better?
I think if I talked to her more, and now having seen how it's been a few years later, I think I learned how to talk more and to communicate my thoughts about things and just maybe like the way I do things, my routines. Um, if I plan to do something with my friends, making sure that I tell her, there's still time for you, there's still time for us to do things together, but making sure that just with maturing, obviously, and seeing how uh, I acted then compared to now and the things I've learned, maybe to help me.
Um, when you state making time, I think that's very important. I definitely agree with that point. Making time for your significant other is key to having a healthy relationship. Um, do you think communication was the main problem?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of it. Um, really not just saying the things that we wanted to say and doing the things that we wanted to do at the right time. Um, like even just an example of going to the movies. If I told her we should go to the movies on like Friday night per se, and she said, "Well, I already told my friends I would be hanging out with them," but she didn't communicate that to me. That's where like the potential issues stemmed from, like situations like that.
Right. So you're like making plans around each other and like the
Yeah,
dates are overlapping without
yeah,
communicating. That.
yeah.
Okay, so I noticed you said you weren't saying what you wanted to say. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, sure. So, um, wait, which what are you talking about? Like with the movie situation, or
Yeah. You said it was kind of hard planning stuff around each other because you guys weren't communicating what you wanted to say.
yeah. So, like if I say, "Hey, do you want to go to the movies after my soccer game tonight, which is at 5?" And sometimes she'll just be like on her phone or doing other things and not really paying attention to me. And so I think that was part of it too, was um, communication and then just really paying attention to each other too. when we're trying to talk about things or plan ahead, because I feel like later on maybe that's what led to issues with like time management and not understanding or hearing the person correctly.
Right. So lack of attention, you would
Yeah,
say, played
lack
a
of
role in it.
the listening.
Yeah, I understand that. Whenever like there's lack of attention, like from my past experience, you don't feel like you're being heard, and like that can be hurtful sometimes. Or like you go to start a conversation or remind a person about something and they have no clue what you're talking about because they weren't listening
Yeah.
whenever it was stated. So yeah. Um so that played a role in your situation. What do you think could have prevented or helped out that part of the problem, the lack of
I think
attention?
this, I think the setting probably for one. So maybe if I had waited to tell her things like when she's away from her friends or her phone, or if we were by ourselves and there was less or not at all distractions, because I think distractions probably played a big part in that. Or if she
Mhm.
was telling me something and I'm talking to my friends or family or something like that, and I'm not really hearing what she was saying. So I think that could have led to the issues later down the line as well.
Right. And you also stated earlier that you have matured from this situation. So what do you think um like later in life or in the future you could see yourself doing differently in a relationship now that you've learned from your past?
I think listening and hearing better are key for sure. Uh,
Mhm.
Making sure that I'm not distracted all the time and being focused on where I need to be. Like if I'm focused on school or something, I need to be focused on that at that time. If I'm focused on sports, I need to be focused on whatever I'm doing, just making sure that I'm focused with it generally in life and paying attention to like one thing at a time instead of trying to pay attention or listen or think about everything at once. So
Right.
probably will help communicate better.
Right. Staying focused is a very good key. And so basically today we covered about how communication needs to be better, um, um, lack of timing or hobby differences have played a role in some of the conflict or relationship problem. So basically having a better setting, becoming more mature, and taking the time to say what you want to say and plan around each other, and all that basically plays a role in better communication in your relationship.
Yes,
And
I think
so in
you.
the
Oh,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I think you really heard what I was saying, and I think you really helped me reflect on some of the key points that maybe I learned from or that I'm still learning from, and some things to just keep in mind and think about.
Okay. All right, that should pretty much cover what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, sounds good.